Hi everybody, it's Tripl-L here to talk about Danmachi episode, I believe we're in episode 9, might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's episode 9 because I remember doing it, yeah, episode 9. Anyway, yeah, here we are to talk about Danmachi. It's a new novel that we've begun with this episode, and in terms of the episode itself, you can kind of see that it's a lot of setup, although, honestly, I kind of wish they didn't skip over the actual setup. I kind of wish they did actually go in. You know what section I'm talking about. There's a montage sequence that happens there where everyone's getting ready. You know, Hestia's getting the book. Belle and the rest were getting some magic items from Fell's hidden workshop. I would have really appreciated if they actually talked more about it, because that's where some world building details were hidden. But whatever. This is how the anime does it. Not very... Doing this only tells me that they're going to be putting more attention or giving more time to the remaining content of the book, so that's all fine. Maybe this is better for them in the long run. Maybe this works better for the audience. I don't know. Just as a reader, I kind of wish we got more, but whatever. Here we are for Danmachi. What are we going to talk about? Well, I got some top moments here, and then we're going to go into general notes. So for top moments, here are my favorite moments in the episode. 1. Mord getting offended over Belle. This was really cool because Mord has that history with Belle. It's just neat. It's interesting that one of the worst kind of adventurers is the one that's like, yo, I know this kid is better than what these guys are saying. So it's cool because this is the first guy that shows the benefit of the doubt for Belle. And it's neat that it's Mord of all people. So I really appreciated this. This was a cool detail in the book. I'm glad that they maintained this one because it's a cool note for the character. My second top moment was when Hermes talks about the problem that Finn poses with his mentality. So this was really interesting. This was, I think this was cool. This line really serves as a setup type of thing where it's saying that, hey, this is going to be one of the main characters that we have to watch for this book or for like the remaining portion. He's going to be the character that's going to be leading the biggest problems. That's why I like that he had that little note. It's neat when you have, of course, a god talking very nicely about someone like Finn. And it's one of those moments that really makes me think, like, I hope Finn lives up to Hermes' hype. Moving on, we had Hestia defending Belle from the townsfolk. I enjoyed this moment. I think it was really cute. I think it was really adorable how Belle was appreciative. Now, one thing I do like here is that the image that it creates is that Belle is a person who has a very unreasonable goddess. I think the book went a little bit further into the detail, but Hestia did end up looking bad here, and Belle did gain a little bit of pity. It's just the idea that you're working for a goddess and you're in debt, and then everyone knows how people relate to the gods in the city. So you know, good on Hestia for being so amazing, right? But she did lose, or she did take quite a hit to her reputation with that one. Next top moment, Seer being kind to Belle and her saying why she likes him. This was just a nice little chill moment. This was a scene that in the novel was graced with an illustration page. So seeing it here makes sense. It's one of the big focal points for the novel. It was also important for the Seer-Belle ship, if that's a thing. It serves a little bit of a break. When you look at the episode, we actually spent a lot of time in Daedalus Street, and then Seer is like this nice little breath of fresh air, so I appreciated it. It does feel a little bit weird because it's squeezed in around such tense content, but hey, a nice little break for Belle. Next up, my next top moment was when Hermes brings up the notes of Daedalus. These things have been in the story for a while. I'm glad they finally brought it up. I'm not sure if it was Ikelos that gave it to him in the novel. I don't recall very well. It might have been. It might have also have been Dix. He might have dropped it at some point. But the notes were originally Dix's. Ikelos having them in anime or in context might just because the guy just passed it over or something like that. But they do originally belong to Dix. Moving on, my next top moment was when the gods were conspiring. So we're talking about all of Hestia's friends, right? It was just neat. It was neat to see them talking. It was neat to see them trying to figure out what was going on. And of course, this was also in conjunction with the Hermes Familia conspiring to do stuff behind the scenes. It was cool to see Aisha expressing her doubts. And it was cool to see Ryu there as well, with them talking about how they were going to give her more information about the evils. I think that it is going to be an arc in the future, so it was just neat to see that. Next top moment was Welf making the swords and him saying, "Don't leave us behind," to Belle. So this was neat in that, you know, it's the moment that says that, hey, the family is with you. Even if you're not talking to them, they're with you. Now, what I find ironic is that Welf says, "Don't leave us behind." And it's like, Welf, I'm sorry to tell you this, but this is a problem outside of Belle's control, because the author likes separating Belle from the rest of the family. I don't know why they enjoy doing this, but he gets separated a lot. Actually, I think in every book he gets separated. Like, I'm just thinking back to the ones I just finished, well, skimming the other day, and Belle lives eternally separated from the rest of his family. And why does that happen? I think it's easier to write Belle when he's separated from the family. I think that's what the issue is. Like, there has never been a more stark divide between... Look, like, okay, the way it works is that when your arc is over, you join the Hestia Familia, right? Or you're part of the Hestia Familia when your main arc is over. And once you're in the Familia, you are now officially not yourself anymore. You are now the Familia itself. And the Familia itself is almost always separated from Belle at the climax of any particular book. It's just how that goes. So that's why I find it, when Welf says, "Don't leave us behind," it's like, yo, I would bet he's going to be in a situation where it's only going to be him once again. I'm going to bet it's going to happen multiple times, just because this always happens. It was an ironic statement, honestly. And you can think about it, you know, you look back to like early Danmachi. Well, I guess no, because we're going into a new era Danmachi, but you look back to it, you know, Belle's on his own when he's going after Weene. Belle was on his own when he was fighting Aisha for Haruhime's soul. You know, Belle's on his own a lot. It just happens a lot. Anyway, moving on. My next thought moment. The Xenos, including Gross, calling Fels a fiend for using Belle. This was cute, but Gross was the big one, because he's the one that was, you know, he took a little while to convince, but it was really adorable how everyone's like, no, why are you screwing Belle over? This was a wonderful moment. And again, I think Gross having his line there is what makes it even better, because he's the one you don't expect to have there. And finally, my last top moment is everyone's prepping. We see all the preparation going on, and then we have Hermes again setting up that Finn is going to be the biggest obstacle. So this does seem like narrative framing to me. It does seem like the author is saying, like, hey, again, Finn is going to be the big, like, sort of villain for this thing, or this is going to be the person we gotta see for the next little bit. He's going to be the big villain for Act 1 or something like that. You know, that's the kind of we gotta think about it. It does seem like a framing device, and when you have Hermes talking about how hardcore Finn is going to be, which is, again, good for Finn, right? Now, given that point, one thing that I find really funny as I'm going into this episode and I'm watching the build up for Finn, all I'm thinking is like, yo, it must suck to know that these people are going to be on the wrong side of history. Like, really, these guys are going to go all out here, but at the end of the day, we as viewers know that the Xenos and their plight is one worth defending. We know that Belle is intended to be the hero in this particular situation. I really hope that once this whole thing is settled, like way off in the future, I don't know how long this is going to take, that the people from the Loki Familia, you know, they look at the situation and they're like, shit, we were really stupid on this one. I don't know how that's going to work out, but I really hope we get to a point where they just kind of realize they were doing the wrong stuff. That's all I really want for them. I just want to see that moment where they realize, you know, what have we done type of thing. Will we get a moment like that in this arc? I don't know. But it's just like, you know, when you look at it, it's almost guaranteed that at the end of the day, the Loki Familia is going to be wrong in what they're doing. We have the justification that they're doing this because Finn doesn't want to give up the opportunity to make his people relevant again. I know, the man just wants relevancy. But I look at that and it's like, well, you have Uranus, the master of the gods, or whatever he is in mythology. You have Urenos there. He's praying to the dungeon. The dungeon is the source of all their livelihoods. Every god knows that the dungeon is the dungeon. Everyone knows that the dungeon is weird. He's the guy there. He's at the frontier of seeing new developments. And pretty much every other god is they're kind of just behind the curb. They don't know what Urenos knows, and we all know that Urenos knows better because the dungeon itself is a bigger entity. Of course, us also knowing how the reincarnation cycle works, well, Bell also knows that too. It's just like there's so many factors that tells us Bell's party is right, such that, you know, people like Eyes are going to have a pretty big pie on their face when everything turns out like, hey, you guys are monsters. You guys are worse monsters than the monsters themselves. And we, of course, have to touch on like the issue with adventurers, in that what they've done is essentially create an us versus them mentality, and then you have people like Eyes who say like, well, if monsters are going to be making people cry, I'm going to kill monsters. And it's like, yo, humans are monsters too, but of course we're not going to see that level. That's too nuanced for Loki Familia. Actually, not too nuanced for Finn, maybe too nuanced for Eyes, maybe, depending. Eyes has her own particular problems. She has enough problems that she has her own spin-off story. I shouldn't be too mean there, but you guys get the feel of what I'm saying. I am very curious to see the day that this all comes to a head, and it's just like, well, I hope they give the Xenos an apology at the very end of all this. Do I have anything else to say for the episode in terms of general notes? Well, no, not really. It's just, it's mostly setup, and again, we're doing this thing of, you know, Bell bringing his family in, his family saying they're always going to be with Bell. You know, it's just a regular day in Danmachi. I don't have really much else to say other than it's interesting who we're going to be dealing with. The biggest thing that we got to be looking at here is the stuff that we saw in the opening, that being Bell versus Eyes. If it does come down to that, it's going to be pretty cool. And we had in the episode everyone, or Finn, saying like, it's going to be Bell. Everything's going to be on Bell. We have the setup of where the Xenos have to go. It's going to be really interesting. I am very excited to see who's going to confront Bell in all this situation. It's going to be quite the giant mess. But yeah, that's going to be fun for this coming week. Anyway, guys, let me know what you thought down below, and I'm going to leave it there. Till next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.